Safety disclosures. Use caution when using materials and tools in your studio. The mixers used in these procedures spin at a high speed. Don't put your hands in the bucket or you can get hurt. Follow directions supplied with your tools. Read all operational manuals and follow their advice. When mixing dry materials, wear a quality dust mask. When firing fiber clay in a kiln, make sure you have adequate ventilation to prevent breathing in kiln fumes. For your safety, read all safety publications concerning materials you are using. Do not use moldy or black clay, throw it away. Test all of these techniques and recommended materials prior to making a large amount of work. Your safety is your responsibility and is very important. It calls for your sustained attention. On this module, I wanted to talk about the benefits of fiber clay. At workshops, I'm asked basically 3 questions. They're very consistent almost every time. One of the questions, what are the benefits of paper clay or fiber clay? Why change the clay that I'm using? And the other question is, how much fibers do I add to the clay? Third question is, what fibers? Can I use nylon fiberglass or dryer lint? I've never quite understood dryer lint. In my household, it'd be a combination of cotton and dog hair. I don't think it's a good idea. So some of the benefits, you can use any clay you want to use and make fiber clay out of it. You can make large forms. Fiber clay increases the strength of the clay, and you can move the unfired pieces to a kiln. It also helps hold up the clay during the working process. Fiber and clay helps to hold the pieces up. Working with fiber clay is a lot easier. You can make armatures or forms, and then you can put clay around the outside of those forms. I know people that actually go and make life-size clay forms by having armatures and then doing the outside of it. There's a wonderful artist in Denmark by the name of Melanie Peterson that ties together wooden things like sticks and stuff, and then goes and makes a skin for the outside of it, makes really organic forms, very, very large forms using paper clay. You can dip elements and then let them dry and then attach them together, which is one of the really interesting things. You can add dry forms to wet forms. See how it changes all these rules? When I was teaching at the clay studio for many years, I had students that would go in and use paper clay and have no other experience at all with any other clay. Before they went off to take other classes with clay, I always had to have the paper clay discussion. The rules change with other clay. One of the nice things about paper clay is that you can really push the limits of this material. You can be very creative with it. There are people that are doing things every day that are extremely different with this material. And it's all because of the fact you've got all of these fibers that are added to the clay that are helping to hold it together. For example, if I make a teapot and it becomes bone dry and I look at the handle of it and I say, oh, what was I thinking? Oh, it's too large. I can go break it off. I can roll out soft, wet clay. I can put water or slip on both of the points and I can put another handle on it. I do that all the time, all the time. If a student breaks a piece of work, or if you want to repair a piece of work, fiber clay, that alone would be really valuable to know. You can go out and fix stuff. You can add plastic clay to bisque. You can bisque a piece, and if I wanted to put knobs or something on the outside of it, I could take wet plastic clay and paper clay slip, stick it to the bisque, re-bisque it, put it in the bisque one more time, bring it out, glaze it, put it in the final glazing. You would never know that I put those on afterwards. It's an amazing material. You can throw with fiber clay, but I'm not sure if that's a very good idea. Fibers in clay reduce the plasticity. And so if you are using a very minor amount of fibers in the clay, you could throw with it. A better idea yet would be to go on and throw with your regular clay. And then if you're adding anything to that thrown body, for example, if you're putting a spout or a handle, you could make those elements with paper clay and they will stick a lot better to the form. So maybe the combination, you shouldn't worry about adding paper clay fibers or paper clay to regular clay because it will stick. It'll actually stick better. I have a student, for example, that takes cone 6 porcelain and cone 6 stoneware and throws pitchers and then puts porcelain handles on them. And it's the stoneware and porcelain together. It's one of those things where I'm really fascinated by the technique, but I think the actual work doesn't look very good. I don't know if you should try that or not. But it does stand up to the ability of paper clay being able to stick. It sticks together very well. One of the nice things about paper clay is that wedging is completely unnecessary. I know I did say that. Wedging is completely unnecessary. I mix the clay usually by rolling it between my hands and folding it over a couple of times, but that's just mixing it together. Because of the paper fibers, and wedging is basically aligning all the clay particles in the same direction, the paper fibers or the fibers in the clay get in the way of that process, so basically you can't wedge it. Paper in the amounts that are being recommended in this training won't hurt your kiln. Again, because of the warning at the beginning of this, you want to make sure you're not breathing the fumes from a kiln. But I fire my kiln inside my studio with a ventilation system, but I don't smell any smoke from this at all. One of the things you may see is the water vapor coming off of paper clay, but that's not smoke. So you can fire stuff much earlier, and sometimes I will literally fire the kiln with wet work in it. One of the things I like to tell students is that the bisque state is the most fragile time for your paper clay. If you're going to break it, it's going to be broken in bisque. But one of the nice things is with bisque you can repair the piece. You can layer clay, including you can put layers of clay inside of a mold. Again, you can add layers of soft clay and layers of hard clay together if you want to. You know, I mentioned earlier that a lot of the aspects of paper clay are being discovered, and every year new things are coming up with it. One of the new things that's being done is something called poured slabs. That's taking paper clay slip and deflocculating it. Now let me explain what deflocculation is. Deflocculation is if you're going to make cast objects, the clay that they're using is deflocculated. It's adding sodium silicate to the clay in small amounts. That sodium silicate, what it does is it eliminates the surface tension in the clay and the water that's in the clay. So by volume, say I had 1 cubic inch of clay. If I had regular clay and then I had some of deflocculated clay, the deflocculated clay would have more particles in it than regular clay. And because of that, poured slabs are denser than regular slabs. So they take a plaster table, they deflocculate the clay, then they pour the clay onto the table, and then as it sets up, they peel that off. And it's a way of making a phenomenally thin slab of porcelain. Very interesting. In this clay, in these modules, we're not going to cover poured slabs, but at a later date, we may make some modules for that. So the next module that we're going to be working with is what type of fibers to use in my clay.